Happy Stranger Things Day! Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Uncut, the podcast. We're starting a very fun series today, all about Stranger Things. Stranger Things has obviously been out for like 10 years now. I was in high school when season 1 dropped, and now we are here, past college and everything. So Smash and I are both really excited to finally finish this show, see how it all comes to an end. But we can't just react to season 5. I want to go back in time and look at each season, really analyze the lore, anything I might have missed. That way we are fully prepared for the series finale that premieres on New Year's Eve. So today is the day that the first 4 episodes, volume 1, aka, is dropped for season 5, but I wanted to go back in time to season 1 to do a recap, seasons 1 and 2 to do a recap on those, because according to the Duffer Brothers, those are the seasons to watch to make sure that you understand all of the lore and establish storylines to prepare for season 5. So today I have a pretty comprehensive recap of season 1, everything that happened, all of the important plot points, and then season 2 will be posted in just a few days, so make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can get notified when the next video drops. Without further ado, let's go back to season 1 and see how this story all began.
Chapter 1. The Vanishing of Will Byers. November 6th, 1983, Hawkins, Indiana. We see a man running through a laboratory trying to get on an elevator. Something is coming. Right when we think he escapes, he gets pulled off screen at the mercy of a monster no one has ever seen before. A group of kids sit around a table playing Dungeons and Dragons. We have Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and Will, middle school aged and seemingly longtime best friends. It's late on a school night, so Dustin, Lucas, and Will get on their bikes and head home. That's when Will sees a monster standing in the middle of the road and crashes his bike. Will runs home, terrified, but the monster follows him. He gets ready to fight back, but suddenly he vanishes without a trace. Will lives with his mother Joyce and brother Jonathan. Jonathan was supposed to be home earlier the night before, but stayed out late despite Joyce working the night shift. Both come to the horrifying realization that Will isn't in his bed or in the house at all that next morning. We then meet Nancy, who is Mike's older sister. Her best friend is Barb, and Nancy is seeing a boy named Steve Harrington. Barb and Nancy have been friends for a while, but it's clear her budding relationship with Steve is going to take an adjustment for the friends. The chief of police in Hawkins is Hopper, who smokes seemingly hundreds and thousands of cigarettes throughout the show and generally seems aloof and closed off. Joyce is waiting in his office to report Will as missing and demand action. Hopper isn't immediately concerned, theorizing Will may have just ran off or is with his dad. It's clear in this interaction he and Joyce have known each other for a while and might have been friends or even more at some point. We get another look inside the lab, meeting a man named Dr. Brenner. It's clear something dark has happened in the lab. A section of it has been quarantined off, and men are dressed in hazmat suits to investigate a strange opening in the wall that suggests the presence of a monster. A girl stumbles into frame in the next scene, appearing in a hospital gown with a shaved head. She sneaks into a restaurant and begins eating food when she is caught by the owner. The owner has enough wherewithal to know that this girl is not some normal kid stealing food. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas later that day get brought down to the principal's office to get questioned by Hopper on Will's disappearance. While their testimony is semi-helpful, Hopper doesn't want them to search for Will and instead stay home. We go back to the restaurant to see the girl, who goes by 11, and the restaurant owner attempting to talk to each other. The owner called social services trying to get her help, assuming maybe she's been kidnapped or abused. We shockingly see the first glimpse of Eleven's powers in this scene as she turns off a fan with her mind. A woman claiming to be from social services comes to the restaurant later that night, but instead of helping 11, she kills the restaurant owner. 11 sees the murder and runs, notably killing 2 men who attempt to block her exit. Dr. Brenner arrives on the scene, implying 11 is connected to the events playing out at the lab. Hopper uses the boys' testimony to search for Will, finding his bike on the side of the road. He uses physical evidence left at Joyce's house to piece together that Will's disappearance is more serious than he thought and assembles a search party. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas create their own mini search party to find Will on their own, despite Hopper's threats earlier in the day, at the same time that Steve sneaks into Nancy's room for some alone time. Joyce and Jonathan are at home finding a picture to use on Will's missing person poster when she gets a phone call. Joyce realizes it's Will on the other end trying to communicate with her. The phone shorts out after we hear a monster growl, leaving Joyce distraught. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas continue their late-night search, trying to find any sign of Will, even as it begins to rain. That is when the trio stumbles upon 11. Chapter 2. The Weirdo on Maple Street. After finding 11, the gang, as I will refer to them from here on out, bring her back to Mike's house, keeping her hidden in his basement. They can tell she's not like any girl they've met, but Mike tries to be kind to her regardless. Lucas thinks she's crazy and probably an escaped patient from a psych ward. He insists they ditch 11 and continue searching for Will. This back and forth argument continues for the next couple of episodes. They do start referring to her as Elle for short. Hopper is continuing his search from the day before, not giving up. He doesn't believe Joyce when she says she heard Will's breathing over the phone. Nancy gets invited to Steve's house later that night for a party. She wants Barb to come with her. We get an insight into how Jonathan is a loner guy at school and not part of a popular crowd like Steve. Nancy attempts to express how sorry she is that Will is missing. With Elle in the house, Mike didn't want her to be alone, especially after she tells him dangerous men are after her. He skips school to show her around his house. This is also the first time she eats Eggos, which historically became Elle's favorite food. We also get the shocking realization that Elle has seen Will before and recognizes his picture in Mike's room. When Joyce and Jonathan leave the house for the day, we see their house being searched by people from the lab in hazmat suits. It's clear the lab is beginning to believe Will's disappearance is related to the opening found at the lab. We get our first glimpse into Elle's past through a flashback she has after being forced to hide in Mike's closet when his mom came home early. She calls Dr. Brenna Papa as she is carried down a hall by two unknown men and placed in solitary confinement. Elle has apparent PTSD from this experience. Hopper is called to the restaurant Elle was at last night. The owner has been found, but instead of finding him murdered, his death was staged as a suicide. Hopper is distraught at seeing this, as the owner was a friend of his. Jonathan finally arrives at his dad Lonnie's house, searching for Will. It seems like Lonnie is a relatively absent father and not an especially good guy. Will isn't there, and Lonnie doesn't seem distraught that Will is gone. He blames Joyce's ability to be a good mother as the reason Will went missing. The gang all assemble in Mike's bedroom so he can relay the news that Elle knows Will and might know where to find him. Lucas lashes out immediately, demanding answers, again wanting Elle gone. Elle has to use her powers to ensure he doesn't run off and tell Mike's mom that Elle is here. Hopper takes testimony on the restaurant owner's suicide. Seems clear Hopper is kind of suspicious of the whole thing. It's revealed that some kid, boy specifically, was seen at the restaurant by other patrons. Hopper immediately wonders if maybe it was Will who was there. After the search party sweeps the area, it seems some signs point to the possibility that Will could be somewhere inside the lab via a tunnel opening that has the piece of a hospital gown attached. Barb and Nancy pull up to Steve's house for the get-together, lying to their parents that they're actually at the assembly vigil for Will. Barb is clearly not excited to come, but will do anything for Nancy. Back at Mike's house, Elle tries to explain where Will is using the Dungeons & Dragons board as a visual. Says Will is hiding from what the gang knows as a Demogorgon. Jonathan, as a chance of research, uses his film camera that night to take pictures of the site where Will's bike was found. He hears screaming and runs to find out what's going on when he stumbles upon Steve's house party. He takes pictures of the whole thing, even intimate moments, being overall creepy. Nancy suggests Barb goes home, as she is having a great time with Steve. Barb tries to reason with Nancy that staying and going up to his room isn't like her, but she won't listen. Barb doesn't leave immediately, staying out by the pool, upset with her hand bleeding from attempting to shotgun a beer when a huge monster appears behind her and causes her to vanish in a matter of seconds. At Joyce's house, she gets another phone call from Will, but this is followed by the lights in the house going haywire. She believes the lights are a new way Will is trying to communicate. She even sees a figure pushing itself through a wall in Will's bedroom. Chapter 3, Holly Jolly. Barb wakes up in a new world that looks like Hawkins but is covered in ash with a monster right on her tail. She fights hard to escape, but with no one around to hear her scream, the monster attacks, and we are left with the possibility that Barb just died. Jonathan wakes up the next morning to see Joyce surrounded by lamps. He's worried about her potentially having a psychotic break, not believing for a moment that Will is actually communicating through lights. Joyce goes further, setting up string lights around her house to give Will more chances to communicate. She later on also paints letters on the wall to give Will a chance to spell out messages to her. The gang prepares for what they call Operation Mirkwood, getting weapons and finding rocks for their slingshots to face the Demogorgon. We see that the gang is targeted by two bullies who crudely say that Will is already dead. Nancy notices Barb isn't in class that next day. She tries to ask Steve's friends, but they claim they didn't see her when she left and thinks things are one big joke. Nancy calls Barb's mom, subtly trying to gauge if Barb went home or if she has gone missing like Will. Hopper and his two officers go to the lab in an attempt to find Will. They search the other end of the tunnel and check video footage. Hopper points out that the video footage had to have been doctored, as the days in which the footage show are actually days that it rained, despite no rain being seen on the footage itself. He begins researching at the library everything they can find about the lab. The lab has faced several lawsuits which concern Hopper. Jonathan develops the photos he took last night in the high school's darkroom, but is caught by another student. Steve and his friends target him, correctly getting angry at him for spying on them and taking a photo of Nancy taking off her shirt. They call him a pervert and destroy both the pictures and his camera. In this episode, we also get a couple more insights on what Elle was being forced to do at the lab, from destroying objects like a Coke can to being told to harm a cat. After she failed the last test, she almost gets placed back in solitary, but she lashes out, murdering the men who were dragging her to the cell. She actually gets compliments and affection for the murder, which only highlights the depravity of Dr. Brenner and his experiments. Nancy goes back to Steve's house to search for evidence of where Barb went. She is horrified to see Barb's car still parked where they left it. She searches Steve's backyard, but when she sees a faceless monster, she runs to safety, but is left shaken and afraid. Nancy decides to tell her mom the truth, that Barb is missing just like Will. Hopper gets a phone call at the library that changes everything. Elle was in the process of showing the gang where Will is, claiming he is hiding at his house. When they see the police and ambulances, they follow, knowing it must be related to Will. When they get there, they see Will's body being pulled out of the quarry. Hopper and the gang are destroyed by the sight. Mike yells at Elle for getting his hopes up and runs home. It seems things are hopeless now. Chapter 4, The Body. Hopper has the unfortunate task of informing Joyce that Will's body was found, the working theory being he fell in the water and drowned. She doesn't believe this story for a second, citing how he communicates via the string lights. Elle is staying with Mike despite his anger that Elle lied. She uses a radio to prove to him that Will is alive and still out there. Will is heard singing his favorite song. Mike tries to relay a message to Lucas to insist he and Dustin come over to hear Will themselves. Hopper arrives at the morgue waiting for the autopsy to be finished so Joyce can claim the body. The receptionist reveals men from the state took over the autopsy and sent the original medical examiner home the night before. Jonathan and Joyce see the body. Jonathan immediately leaves, distraught, but Joyce can tell that the body is not Will, that she knows it instinctively. That day, Nancy tells Steve about Barb's disappearance, and he tries to convince her not to go to the police as they had alcohol at the party. It's the first of many fights for the once happy couple. Nancy speaks to the police, going through the events of the night. They reveal Barb's car is not by Steve's house anymore. Nancy's mom, Karen, knows she lied about certain events of the night to avoid uncomfortable questioning. Mike is now convinced Will is alive, but Elle is unable to get a connection via radio. The gang plan to disguise Elle with a wig, dress, and makeup to get her inside of their middle school to use the AV Club's radio to 1, prove he's alive, and 2, communicate back with him. Elle and the gang are dragged first to an assembly to honor Will before they can access the radio. Hopper speaks to the local medical examiner about the guys from the state. He's getting more suspicious that something is wrong and that maybe, just maybe, Joyce might be right. He interrogates the man who found Will's body. It's revealed he was told to call in the finding and not let anyone get too close to the body. and he says that Hopper's questioning will get them both killed. Nancy looks at photos Jonathan took on his camera that show Barb at the pool. She realizes he actually captured a monster standing behind her. She goes to Jonathan for help, seeing him as more of an ally now. Nancy recounts what she saw at Steve's house, and Jonathan realizes that Nancy saw the same monster that his mother Joyce was talking about, that maybe his mother isn't crazy at all. As Elle is getting ready to communicate with Will, we get another flashback showing her power to track people by just a picture and search for them via radio waves. They hear Will at the same time Joyce physically sees him inside of a wall in her living room. A monster is coming, and he says he's trapped in a world like home, but it's dark, cold, and empty. The radio lights on fire, and Joyce takes an axe to her wall, thinking that will be enough to get to Will. It is not. Hopper uses force to get access to Will's body at the morgue. While convincing and horrifically realistic, Hopper can tell the body is hard, unlike a human, and able to be cut open. He sees that the body has been stuffed. We have confirmation that Will's death has been faked. Hopper goes to the next extreme and breaks into the Hawkins lab for more answers. Chapter 5, The Flea and the Acrobat. Hopper takes his investigation a step further and breaks into Hawkins' lab to search for Will. He stumbles upon a room with a small bed and a child's stick figure drawing. He immediately knows he has seen a child's bedroom. He continues to explore the lab, seeing the opening for the first time. He then finally gets apprehended by lab employees. Hopper wakes up in his apartment the next day, not knowing how he got there, but realizes his place probably has been bugged. He trashes the entire house and disposes of all the hidden microphones as quickly as possible, realizing he's now under constant surveillance. We learn more people have gone missing in the town and that the lab is covering it up. We know this as cops say they found Barb's car at a bus station. Lonnie, Will's father, comes to Joyce's house, seemingly wanting to provide support for Joyce and Jonathan. Joyce confides in him about seeing and hearing Will. Lonnie wants Joyce to get help, urging her to understand everything's just happening inside of her own head. Elle finally refers to where Will is as the Upside Down, and the gang deduces Will is in a parallel Hawkins, comparing it to the Vale of Shadows from Dungeons & Dragons, that it is a land of monsters. They go with that theory and seek to investigate it further, then they want Elle to show them how to get there. Jonathan now believes his mom, but with Lonnie there trying to take control of the situation, he has to craft his own plan for taking down the monster. Today is Will's funeral, and everyone gathers despite the gang knowing Will is still alive. Nancy and Jonathan connect at the funeral, crafting a plan to go hunting for a Demogorgon in the woods. They practice with bats and guns to prepare for the fight. The gang speak to Mr. Clark at the funeral about the alternate dimension and how someone could possibly travel there. We get a flea and acrobat metaphor to explain how the world works and how one can travel between dimensions via a tear in time and space. The gang plans to follow their wonky compasses with Elle in tow to find the tear, or gate as they call it, and enter the Upside Down themselves. Joyce uncovers a lawyer's contact information in Lonnie's bag. She realizes Lonnie is trying to get money out of Will's death in the form of a lawsuit. She points out to Lonnie that he knows nothing about his kids and just wants to keep the money for himself despite him saying otherwise. He fires back at Joyce, blaming her for being a bad mother and causing Will to die. He storms out of the house. As the gang head into the woods to locate the gate, we get another flashback to the experiments Elle underwent. We see one where she was placed in a sensory deprivation tank and was able to locate people and hear their conversations. She accidentally stumbled upon an unknown monster from the Upside Down in this particular experiment. All at the same time, Nancy and Jonathan have begun their descent into the woods. She gets offended when Jonathan says she's trying to be someone she's not by being with Steve, which is very similar to the critique Barb gave her. She gets defensive and immediately tries to talk positively of Steve. Hopper visits Joyce later that day, and after ensuring her house hasn't been bugged, he tells her Will's body was a fake, that the lab or the government is behind it. Joyce is obviously shocked at the revelation, but smiles knowing that means Will is still out there and there's hope he will come back. The gang had been walking in circles in the woods, and Lucas realizes that Elle has been messing with their compasses and sabotaging their mission. Lucas claims for all they know it could be Elle's fault that Will is missing, that she's the monster. Mike comes to Elle's defense, but the fight escalates into a physical one. Elle launches Lucas off of Mike, but he yells at her for hurting Lucas. She disappears into the night, and when Lucas gains consciousness, he goes home, wanting to be as far away from Mike as he can. Nancy and Jonathan continue searching in the woods even as nighttime falls. They see an injured deer bleeding. They prepare to put it out of its misery when the Demogorgon comes and drags it away in a jump scare. They try to track it, and that's when Nancy sees a tunnel in the base of a tree covered in slime. She stupidly decides to enter the tree to search for it and enters the Upside Down. She has unknowingly crossed through a gate into the Upside Down and is now being chased by the Demogorgon she initially wanted to take head on. Chapter 6. The Monster. Nancy is terrified seeing the monster and runs for her life. Jonathan is trying to find her, hearing her scream his name from the Upside Down. She is able to find the gate she crossed through, effectively escaping the Demogorgon. She is left traumatized, instructing Jonathan to stay in her room and sleep on her bed over the covers that night. Steve at the same time drives to Nancy's house, knowing something is wrong as she keeps blowing him off. He sees Jonathan in Nancy's room and assumes the worst. He and his friends began to plan how to get revenge. Hopper gives more details about the lab. Joyce confirms that the stick figure drawing he saw in a kid's bedroom was not Will's, that he draws better than that. Hopper begins to suspect that perhaps the kid is the child of Terry Ives, who sued Dr. Brenner years earlier for taking her daughter. He realizes that maybe after all this time searching for Will, he accidentally has been assembling clues to search for another kid without knowing. Joyce and Hopper decide to go find Terry Ives and pay her a visit. Nancy and Jonathan correctly piece together that the Demogorgon hunts according to the blood they smell, like sharks. That Barb was bleeding when she was taken, and so was the deer. They decide they want to test that theory. The lab is on to the gang, correctly deducing that Elle is staying with one of the boys. They gather more intel via Mr. Clark, hiding their true intention under a tech AV program. They use this info to monitor the boys and see if and when they can capture Elle. Elle hasn't returned to Mike's house, and he angrily tears down the spot he made for her to sleep in. He gets more concerned that Elle hasn't returned as the day goes on. Dustin insists Mike apologize to Lucas for throwing the first punch to get the gang back together. Only then can they properly search for Elle. Lucas doesn't want Elle to be in the party and decides he's going to find the gate on his own. Mike and Dustin decide to go off in search of Elle. In this episode, we also get the famous scene of Elle going into a grocery store, stealing Eggo waffles, and successfully getting away with it with her abilities. Later that day, Hopper and Joyce arrive at Terry Ives' house, trying to speak with her and trying to see if she might have any info that could help them find Will. She is, however, catatonic and unable to give any insight. Her sister is there, though, and tells them about the experiment Terry was involved in with Dr. Brenner, and how she didn't know she was pregnant at the time. She says Terry miscarried instead of actually giving birth to her daughter like she claims. Hopper and Joyce, though, aren't entirely persuaded that Terry is mistaken. Nancy and Jonathan buy supplies for the trap they want to set for the Demogorgon. They stumble upon Steve and his friends spray painting a movie theater, calling her a slut. She discovers Steve thinks she cheated on him and tries to defend herself. Jonathan tries to get her to just leave, but Steve antagonizes him, bringing up Will's death. They get into a physical fight that the cops break up. Jonathan ends up arrested. While searching for Elle, Mike and Dustin run into their bullies at the top of the quarry. After a threat to cut Dustin with a knife, Mike is forced to jump off the quarry edge. The bullies stop, shocked that he followed through with it, but they see Mike floating above the water before being dropped back at the top safely. Elle is behind it, and before the bullies leave, she breaks one of their arms. Mike and Dustin are glad to have her back. We get our final, most damning flashback. Elle is back in the sensory deprivation tank, but sees a Demogorgon in the flesh. She approaches it slowly, but it turns and sees her. Elle understandably freaks out, but her reaction causes the walls in the lab to open. We now know that Elle accidentally tore open a gate to the Upside Down and is responsible for the unleashing of monsters. She confesses this to Mike. Lucas follows his compass and realizes the gate is inside of the lab. Instead of trying to break in, he gets to a high position and watches them, realizing the power and light vans that have been seen throughout the neighborhood actually originate from the lab. Mike, Dustin, and Elle go back to Mike's house, not knowing they are being watched by one of those vans. The man inside calls in to say where Elle is, and soon Dr. Brenner and the others gear up to head to Mike's house. Chapter 7. The Bathtub. Mike, Dustin, and Elle are back at Mike's getting cleaned up after the run-in with the bullies when they get an urgent call over radio from Lucas, who tries to warn them that the bad men are coming for them as they know Elle is there. He warns over and over, the bad men are coming, the bad men are coming. There's chaos as the gang get on their bikes to outrun the vans that are targeting them. They worry they are cornered when Elle lifts one of the vans in the air and crashes it. The gang decide to go to a vehicle junkyard to hide out. Dr. Brenner and his team decide to search Mike's house for any sign of Elle and where they might have gone. Mike's mom, Karen, is shaken and scared, but her husband is calm and collected, willing to do anything they ask because they are good, patriotic Americans. Dr. Brenner tells Karen they want to help Mike, but that he's in grave danger, and they need to cooperate should they want to bring Mike back to safety. Joyce and Hopper arrive at the police station to find out why Jonathan was arrested. Cops find weapons in his trunk. Jonathan and Nancy are forced to reveal what they know to Joyce and Hopper. Steve is becoming remorseful for the fight, showing that he has genuine feelings for Nancy and is upset over the whole ordeal. He gets into a fight with his now ex-friends as he still wants to defend her. He decides to go back to the theater to clean the spray paint off the signs himself as an act of apology. Hopper, Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy go to see the Wheelers' house being searched by government officials. Hopper insists that Nancy cannot return home and that they all need to find Mike, as he's most likely with Elle. They use the radio to communicate to the gang, wanting to know their whereabouts. They successfully rescue the gang and bring them back to Joyce's house. Now all together, they share information that they know so they are all on the same page. They ask Elle if she can look into the Upside Down to communicate with Will and Barb. Elle tells them about the sensory deprivation tank method the lab used and tells them if they recreate it, she can find Will and Barb. Dustin calls Mr. Clark for info on how to create one with salt water and a kiddie pool. They all head to Hawkins Middle School to collect the amount of salt they need for the tank, and they assemble it in the school gymnasium. Elle goes into the water and first finds Barb's dead and mutilated body. She tells the group Barb is gone. She then goes to search for Will with Joyce's encouragement. She finds him alive but weak and cold. Elle tries to relay a message to him, but he quickly disappears and she's back in darkness. With this information, Joyce and Hopper leave, heading to the lab. They insist the kids stay at the school. They are apprehended quickly the moment they arrive at the lab, though. Jonathan and Nancy aren't happy to stay put, so they decide to leave and try to kill the Demogorgon like planned. They sneak into the police station to grab their tools and head to Jonathan's house to set up the trap. Time is running out for Will as we finally get his perspective from inside the Upside Down. We see his hiding place finally revealed and a monster breaking in, destroying it. Chapter 8. The Upside Down. Joyce is questioned by Dr. Brenner for information on how she was able to talk to her son. He tries to explain that he's actually on her side and wants to save Will. Joyce immediately shoots him down, blaming him for her son going missing and faking his death. She's offended he's asking for help and that he and the lab are the reason she has been put through pain. Hopper is being tased and interrogated in another room. He tells them he knows everything. Every crime they committed, how they are covering things up, murdering townsfolk, and faking Will's death. They are about to fake his death via overdose when he tells them exactly what he and Joyce intend to do and how once they find Will, they will pretend like nothing happened. Hopper and Joyce suit up to enter into the Upside Down. Dr. Brenner only allows it because the lab assumes they will get killed in there just like everyone else who has entered. Dr. Brenner is insistent that they will never be able to find Will in there, and he heads off with armored cars ready to find Elle. As Hopper and Joyce explore the Upside Down, we see flashbacks to when Hopper's daughter was alive, through to her fight with cancer. It seems searching for Will brought back memories of him fighting for a cure to save his daughter's life, but was ultimately unsuccessful. The gang realizes Jonathan and Nancy are gone. Elle says she knows they are after a Demogorgon. Jonathan and Nancy are thorough, booby-trapping the house and creating a nail-covered bat, pouring gasoline, and loading guns with bullets. Nancy and Jonathan slice their hands open so the blood attracts the Demogorgon. They sit and wait when suddenly Steve arrives. He wanted to apologize to her, but walked in on the chaos of Jonathan's house. Nancy threatens him with a gun to get him to leave, but that's when the Demogorgon arrives. Steve is helpless and completely freaks out seeing it. He gets enough courage to use the bat to fight it off, and they all work together to get the Demogorgon to land in their trap. They light the creature on fire and it disappears, seemingly destroyed. The gang is still at the school, looking for something to eat, and Mike confesses his feelings for Elle. Suddenly, armored cars pull up. They immediately try to make a run for it, looking for anywhere to escape or hide. They get cornered for a moment when Elle uses her powers to murder all their assailants in one massive blow. She passes out due to the immense use of power. Dr. Brenner arrives and tries to convince Elle that he's going to take her back to the lab and make her better, but Elle is able to see through the manipulation. As timing would have it, the massive blood pile from the dead military lab workers attracts the, notably, not dead Demogorgon. The gang use this chance to escape with Elle. They go to a nearby classroom to hide out as Elle is still weak, but the Demogorgon finds them. Despite how much power she's already used, Elle fights on, pinning the Demogorgon to a wall and sending it back to the Upside Down, causing herself to vanish. With Elle and the Demogorgon gone, firefighters and ambulances are called to the middle school, and the gang are picked up by their parents. Hopper and Joyce find the nest of the Demogorgon that's filled with multiple dead bodies. Will is there, attached to a long tentacle or root from the monster. We are not aware if he is dead yet. They begin CPR, trying to revive him in an incredibly emotional scene, seeing comparisons to when unsuccessful CPR was done on Hopper's daughter. He uses that experience to keep fighting for Will to wake up, which he thankfully does. Joyce is overcome with joy at having him in her arms. A few days later, Will wakes up in a hospital bed getting reunited with everyone. The gang is especially happy to see him as they happily fill him in on everything that happened when he was gone. In the epilogue of the episode, the boys are back, playing Dungeons and Dragons, just like in the first episode. Mike still has Elle's bed set up in the basement, and it's clear he misses her. Nancy and Steve are back together, but it's clear there is still some chemistry between her and Jonathan as she hands him a Christmas gift. We see Hopper in this sequence back at work, but we see him leaving Egos in a wooden box in the woods, which implies Elle might still be out there. Jonathan and Will arrive back home for the night from Mike's house to a festive Christmas dinner. All seems happy until Will goes to the bathroom and coughs up a slug. He gets a brief flashback to the Upside Down, and it's clear he's pretending to be A-okay for his family's sake.
Season 1 was one of those seasons that really got you hooked on a show. It is very strong. I definitely went into it and binged it all when it first came out. And coincidentally, this show became one of the shows that my parents and I watched together. And if you don't know my parents and I, we don't really watch TV. So the fact that we all sat and watched the first season, I think that's a testament to how good it is. I loved so much about it. It is such a unique premise with everything from the Upside Down to Elle, and the friendships and the romantic arc we're seeing with the kids. It's so fun and spooky and amazing. My biggest takeaways were that the world building is just to be matched. It is so well done. It's so well thought out. You feel that they put a lot of effort and thought into how they constructed the world. And I did not see where the show was going after this. I mean, we obviously know where Will is left off, and we know that the Upside Down is not done with us yet. It is going to reappear. We do know that just based off the last episode, like I said earlier. But there is just still so much unknown. And the show really just kept me on the edge of my seat. It is a really, really well done first season, and I had a fantastic time rewatching it as well. Made me fall in love with the show all over again. So let me know what you all thought of season 1, how you think that'll relate to season 5. As of recording, I have not watched season 5's episodes yet. So I will come back to you with my opinions. But I love season 1 so much. I can't wait to talk about season 2. So again, make sure you subscribe and make sure you turn on notifications for when we post the next episode. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching this episode.
You can follow us on all social media as NCAT the Podcast, and additionally, you can find us on YouTube and TikTok as That Film Couple for vlogs and extra content. You can also follow me on Instagram as sebi.mp4 and on Twitch as sebasparra1k.
And you can follow me at caitlin.mp4 on Instagram as well.
My name is Sebastian.
And my name is Caitlin.
And this is
And cut!